I've been thinking a lot lately about politics, and more specifically, I'm not that interested in politics, to be honest with you, because politics come and go. And even in biblical times, the politics of the day were vastly different than ours, and it didn't seem that much of the writers were that concerned about them. If you look at the entirety of Scripture, politics is not really discussed. It's more about our interactions with each other and how we um, as a people are responding to those. And so it's just not a subject that, to me, there's so many people and creators out there that are A, more knowledgeable than me, B, have a background in it, and are creating great content. So that's for them. I was homeschooled and grew up in a Bible-based churches and a Bible-based homeschool curriculum. Read the Bible cover to cover multiple times and have portions memorized just from my upbringing. And so this is kind of where I spend the majority of my time thinking, uh, researching, continuing to read, continuing to really um, in some aspects reject parts of that, and in some aspects embrace parts of that. But what I've been thinking a lot about lately is how did the, I'm 46 years old, so how did the Christianity that I grew up with and um, how did the quote unquote old time religion, right, get really twisted and transformed into this very bizarre form of Christianity that you'd see today, this kind of Christian nationalism. Um, Part of the question that really spurred over the last few years deep research for me is how is it that people took this religion um, and took the teachings of Jesus and turned it into something so ugly and then embraced not just a person. It's not about embracing a candidate or a person. It's about embracing policies that are completely antithetical to everything that I was taught and everything that I read in scripture. And um, it makes me sad, it makes me heartbroken, and also it makes me angry. So um, but that's not an appropriate response. So the appropriate response is to try to figure out like, how are we doing this? What is the uh, next step? And kind of what are the underlying things that have caused this, right? And so um, I think one of the things, there's a few topics here, but which I'll get to in other videos. But one of the things I've really been thinking about is as I'm listening to some of the Christian nationalist type preachers, and some of those that are in leadership, and I'm watching interviews and I'm listening to press conferences, etc. We have, as an American society, um, we've tried to take spiritual concepts and the concepts of Jesus and shift them to something that's very consumable very easily. And I kind of call this the Billy Graham effect. We have turned this into a math problem, essentially. And that's so sad. So, right, it's a math problem instead of giving people a pathway to communicate with God and a pathway to communicate with the universe and a pathway to communicate with the teachings of Christ. We have turned this into a, if you go to, say a prayer on Tuesday, then on Wednesday, if you die in a car accident, you go to heaven. But if you had died on Monday before you said the prayer, you'd go to hell. And by doing that, that is just so sad, right? By doing that, we've redefined the soul as something that like happens when you die instead of the way in which you're living your life now. What we've wound up doing is we've turned Jesus into a magic trick instead of personification of the Christ, right? We've turned Jesus into a magic trick as you say this prayer and your soul is saved, and therefore you're going to go to heaven. It's just so, it's harmful. And so why does this matter, right? Why does it matter what people believe? because you see it being played out in how our policies, and you see it played out in people's lives because they're embracing hateful ideology. They're embracing messages that are completely antithetical to the Christ message, because instead of following the teachings of Christ, they're following these theories about Christ that came along later. And I think there's a lot of things at play, but I think this is one of the main things, is this American Billy Grahamification of Christianity, churning the gospel of, hey, you don't have to live this way, you can live this way. And your soul is what happens now and how you live each day, to some bizarre thing about what happens when you die. And I don't know, it just seems sad to me. The good news is that Christ came to free us from this, and that I'm out here in nature, and the beauty and the divine is all around me. The consciousness is all around me. And the good news is that the words in Scripture, the ones in red that Jesus spoke, are life-giving, are source. I am the way, the truth, the life. It's joy, it's abundance, it's everlasting life each day. Life, 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 life.